What's up, everybody? Emergency edition of the Coast to Coast podcast coming at you. You know what that means. That means it is commitment time here on IC. I'm Joey Powell. With me, as always, Moran and Sherrell McMillan. We're brought to you by Congruity and Johnny T-shirts. And as we teased a little bit on our last episode of the Coast to Coast, our regular episode, we mentioned that Derek Dixon is going to be making his announcement um, today on Friday, and that he had narrowed it down to essentially Pitt and North Carolina. And he is committed to Hubert Davis and the Tar Heels. A little bit of vitals about Derek Dixon. Combo guard, 6'3", probably 190, 195-ish out of Gonzaga College High School in the DMV. He is around that top 50 mark, no matter what you're looking at. He's a four-star player. But again, really, really good circuit he's coming from, having played in the DMV area up in Washington, D.C. Sherrell, the question we always ask about this time, how did this come to be, and how did Derek Dixon end up becoming a Tar Heel?
Well, the first thing, in the words of Sam Cooke, it's been a long time coming, but we knew that North Carolina's change was going to come, and
Recruit don't
it
come.
finally has. Recruit gonna come. Yeah, it's been almost 20 months, 19, 20 months since UNC's last high school commitment. So this is a pretty big deal for UNC. Go ahead.
Sherrell, you had curtains when we did the last did the last one of these, and Sean didn't have a baby the last time we did one of these. I mean, there's a
Good.
lot of things of difference since the last time we've done a high school commitment pod. Go ahead. I'm sorry to
Wow.
step on you, bro.
Wow, little Tommy wasn't even born yet.
Wasn't
That's
even here.
crazy. That's wild. So Dixon really didn't get on UNC's radar until this past May. It's always a funny thing because his first conversation with Hubert Davis was when Hubert Davis called to offer him. Basically, what happened was, they have a list of guys they're going to look at during the spring and summer, and this year was unique because it's the first year there was only one spring evaluation period, which was May 16th through the 18th up in Indianapolis. And so UNC split their time between the event in Texas that was Adidas and the Nike event in Indianapolis. And basically, Dixon plays for Team Takeover, and he just had a really good weekend. And a couple of assistants, Jeff Lebo and Brad Frederick, were there, and they saw him. And then Hubert Davis got a chance to see him as well. And then 2 days later, he had a UNC offer. So he was someone they really just saw play well over the stretch of a couple of days, got an offer, and then they just kind of kept moving forward with him as a priority during the summer and into August. And with his recruitment, they were, I would say, where they were one of the last ones kind of in there because Virginia, Pittsburgh, Syracuse had done a ton of work on him as a junior. They had him on official visits and everything back in, I guess this was March, February, March is when he took those visits. Um, so it shows that UNC still has the power to kind of come in a little bit late and track down the leaders. He set his official visit schedule in July, set his decision date for today back in July, and then he had scheduled I think three official visits in August, or excuse me, in September. But he only made two of them. He only ended up going to Vanderbilt and to UNC and canceling his Arizona visit. So UNC had the last official visit, which was the first weekend in September, and then they also had the last in-home visit, which was 8 days ago on a Thursday night. So between those things, UNC prioritizing him, even though it was later than everyone else, and the fact that UNC is going to need a bunch of guards, and we can talk about that in a little bit after Sean, kind of dives into Dixon the player. But um, there's a potential that they lose all their guards. I mean, you could lose all your guards every year because of the portal, but if you think about it, there's a chance that Cadeau could go pro. There's a chance, I would say, strong chance that Ian Jackson's going to go pro. RJ Davis's eligibility will have been exhausted. Seth Trimble, entered the portal last year. Don't anticipate that happening, but he could do it if he wanted to. And then there's a chance that Drake Powell goes pro as well. So that's kind of almost everyone from your one, two, and three positions who could leave after this year. So there's a lot of holes to fill. And UNC, I think, is very excited to get a top 50 player like Dixon to be the first one to commit to UNC in some time from the high school ranks.
Sean, I know you're going to do some video analysis of Derek Dixon for everybody to see, and you do a really good job in those breakdowns. But I'll ask you, for the sake of this podcast, tell us a little bit about his game. I mean, there's some video out there from on the 24/7 site, I think, of him from EYBL. But tell us what you see in his game, both good and then also things that he could potentially work on to improve before he matriculates.
Sure, and I'll try not to be too repetitive from the last coast to coast, but a true combo guard, I think that that term gets thrown around to pretty much any guard these days, but I would say it really fits him of being kind of a true two that can play the one, whether it's high school at Gonzaga in DC or team takeover for AAU. He was utilized a lot as a secondary ball handler. So either the number two or three in terms of bringing the ball up, but really his specialty comes from outside shooting. So that goes back to Hubert Davis's first first conversation when he got the job of looking for shooters. And this past year in the EYBL circuit, he shot 39%. So I think a lot of times you hear about guys that are shooters and maybe the numbers don't back it up, or maybe vice versa. But I think for him, he has a quick release. You know, when he catches it, he's not dropping the ball down to his knees, so there's not a lot of wasted motion. Good footwork to be able to utilize screens, whether it's off ball or on ball, to get those open looks. And then, you know, I think from a athleticism ability, that's probably not his strength, but he does have the ability to, especially going left, step back, crossover, get work himself open off a few dribbles on the 3 point line, or if he does get momentum, almost similar to Cormac Ryan, and he gets into that 15 to 17 foot space off the dribble, that's pretty much automatic right there. So the big question for me offensively, from a scoring ability standpoint, how does he finish at the rim? I think that'll be the biggest question mark, and probably biggest adjustment that is made once he gets to the college level. From a playmaking standpoint, in EYBL, he only averaged I think a little under or right around 3 assists per game, so decent. And when he does attack in that confined space, he's able to find quick bounce pass, lob. Like he'll find who's open, and he'll do it pretty quickly. And he's not a lot of wasted motion, or I think a high turnover guy. So a very smart, cerebral player that'll fit into the system, can play with a lot of guys defensively. I think the 2-1 is where where the focus will be. Would love to see as he's a senior in high school if he's taking that matchup of the top players. So would love to see some improvement in terms of that angle. I think whether it's high school or AU, it's kind of a lot of time it's been on more maybe the standstill shooter, or maybe the third man on the offensive end. So I think definite some room to improve on the defensive end, but overall a very solid guy. Shooting's the main calling card, and I think more importantly, it's a guy that, given the ranking of 51 right now, which has trended upwards, I think a guy that you'll be seeing sophomore, junior, senior year making that more of an impact, and freshman year, well, he'll get playing time and I think can compete. It'll be probably a situation where you are seeing that year over year jump versus coming in and being a dominant type player from year one.
One thing I want to ask you, Sean, and I agree with you about the very little wasted motion. At 6'3", he's not huge, but he's also not tiny. However, he does look like he has a really tall shot. I don't know another way to describe that, but do you think that contributes at all to the efficiency that we're seeing at him? Because, like you said, he's very repetitive. He's very not mechanical, but he's very good at replicating the motion. You don't see a lot of change in his shot, whether he's coming off a screen or whether he's set. Do you feel like that? You feel like tall is a good description there? Or what? How else would you describe it?
I think that is a good description, because one thing when you're from a physical standpoint, last year he measured with a 6'2" wingspan, so you know fairly short for I'd say a high major caliber two guard. But at the same time, when you see him driving into the paint for the pull up jump shots, there were some shots, whether it was Peach Jam or even in high school, you have to look at the film again to see how did he get that off, because even if it is contested, he has a pretty good sense of, maybe it's fading slightly and still getting his body square to the rim. But to your point on the 3 point shooting, it's quick, it's up, not a lot of wasted motion, not too in front of the face. So he does a good job of not making it unblockable, say like a Jalen Washington, where using his size and wingspan. But for a guard his size, I think it is one of his strong points in terms of that, that quick motion, quick and efficient motion that he does have.
Go ahead, Sherrell.
Sean had mentioned about the combo guard part, and a true combo guard. I think we've gotten in the habit, as I say, we as like a basketball community, media scouting community, or whatever, of calling anyone who can dribble a little bit a combo guard if they're like under 6'4", and that's not really what the definition of a combo guard is. It's someone who I think in a pinch has the ability to initiate offense, to make clean reads, and to kind of run the team. And I think we've said this several times on Coast to Coast. He plays at Gonzaga up in DC, and they have Nick Lewis, who's also a point guard, who also plays with him on Team Takeover. And Steve Turner, who is his coach there, has basically said, "I don't care which one of you guys, initiates the offense. It's just whoever gets the ball, run it up the court. Let's go." Basically, is what he's told them. And you can see that Dixon has definitely worked on that over, I would say, even this year from the high school season into AAU. Because when I saw him both in Indianapolis and then down at Peace Jam, there was a lot of times where he was on the ball a good amount, especially towards the end of Peace Jam. Like he was playing, I would say, 70% of his minutes at at point guard for those 2-3 games, and it looked pretty natural doing it. I have to go back and look at my notes, but he had 6 or 7 assists. And I think the assist numbers may be depressed a little bit because of the fact that he plays with another. Uh, I think Lewis is a true point guard, but I just wanted to point that out that even though he's not being recruited as a point guard, I think in a pinch he can do some initiating, even at the college level, and that's really, really key with how Hubert Davis wants to play, with having multiple ball handlers on the court. If they continue, if they play fast like he said in the offseason, and they continue that moving forward into next year, then that's another player who, when the ball is rebounded or goes in the hoop, who can push the ball up the court. So in addition to his 3-point shooting, I think that's another strength of his, is just that versatility.
And just a few points on, going to Gonzaga and Team Takeover with Lewis. I feel Dixon's almost to a certain extent been second fiddle for a while, because going back to sophomore year, Lewis was first team Washington Post All Met. Dixon was honorable mention last year as a junior. Lewis was first team All Met. Dixon got up to second team All Met. So I feel Lewis has always been the one, at least early on, getting maybe more publicity, as well as more exposure than Dixon. And now Dixon's the one continuing to climb the charts. But in terms of that efficiency, I think one thing for him, whether it's next year or going forward, he's not one that is a ball stopper. We've always talked about, hey, how quick are they moving the ball? We talk about every time during the season in terms of what the player is doing with it and is the ball moving. So I think that's definitely a plus. And then to your point, when he is driving and attacking, he's making quick decisions. So I think all that goes to him, being a smart player, coming from good programs, and he's going to be a guy that, which I think we'll get into, a lot of people will want to play with. Nobody will really fear him in terms of taking minutes or spots, but I think he is a good guy that will be able to complement a lot of different types of guards and wings.
I think that's really important, especially when you consider he's the first proverbial shoe to drop for this class for Hubert Davis, is you're getting a player that other players will want to play with. More importantly, their egos won't feel challenged, their minutes won't feel challenged, or their production won't feel threatened because of the type of player that Dixon is. Sherrell, I think a lot of times people always try to read some tea leaves about what sort of competitor or what sort of talent or what sort of game changer is recruit X going to be. Tell us a little bit about where you think Dixon rates on the competitive scale, or the game affector type of situation.
Well, I think it's up there a good amount. He's not. He doesn't seem like a super emotional guy, at least outwardly. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have like the competitive fire and all that stuff that Hubert Davis likes. I think playing for Team Takeover, like, he knows how to play basketball, and I know that sounds simplistic. And playing for Gonzaga, he knows how to play basketball. Like, you just can't play for those two programs without having an understanding of, like, okay, I need to pass to this guy because this guy is having a great game, or this is how I screen for my point guard if we're in a 1-2 pick and roll, or I need to flare at this time, and just awareness, like general IQ and awareness have to be high to play for those programs. But I think Brandon Jenkins, who is a 24/7 Sports national recruiting analyst, I asked him, this is some time ago, just about Dixon, his thoughts about him. And I thought this was worth reading. So this is a section, again, of the show called Reading, where I just read something off the screen. But Jenkins said, whoever gets him will win a lot of games. He's really efficient when he runs point guard, and he's a guard who plays within himself. He's exceptionally skilled and knows how to play with others. He has a winning approach to the game. He's strong, makes open shots, and is very team oriented. He's not the 5-star guy, but just has the winning effect on teams. And to me, that's how you build a program with guys like that. Obviously, you have to convince them to stay for more than 1 year, and that is always going to be a challenge in the portal. But you talk about, like, you know, kind of pie in the sky, not pie in the sky stuff, but you talk about things like culture and fit, and I think Dixon is there, and he's going to be one who knows what it takes to succeed, knows what it takes to win, and is going to do those things necessary.
Maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment, which I know you love, Sherrell. But a lot of those comments from Brandon Jenkins sound a little bit like the way people described R.J. Davis, in the sense that he's just going to come in with a high IQ and be a competitor and really, really make his team better. I think, again, wasn't a, I don't know, but maybe he wasn't like a top 10 player. I don't remember. Where was R.J. when he came in?
Like, not far from where Dixon is. I think he was
Yeah.
low 40s. And
Yeah, so
you got to
maybe there are
remember
some
too,
parallels.
and you got to remember too, with rankings, they are not an indicator of what a player's college career is expected to be. That's
Right.
not the goal of ranking. So just because he's the 40 or 51st ranked player by 24/7 Sports, that doesn't mean he's going to have the 51st impact over his college career from this class. He'll probably, more than likely, have a greater impact than a lot of guys, and a whole lot of guys in front of him. One, because of length of college career, but also two, for the reasons that Jenkins said, from what we just quoted about his ability to fit in, to kind of be a chameleon, to be a star in his role, whatever that role may be. He does all those things well.
So that brings me to the last question before we get out of here. And we're having an emergency Coast to Coast podcast here on Inside Carolina because Derek Dixon has committed to Hubert Davis and the Tar Heels. First commitment from the 25 class. Has been, I guess one of the many players that have taken an official to UNC. But is kind of, like I said earlier, that first proverbial shoe to drop. So, Sherrell, I want to ask you, we talked heavily in the last show about how one of these commitments will likely alter other people's visit plans, other people's commitment timelines, other offers that North Carolina may have out to the class. How do you think Dixon's commitment to Hubert Davis will change some of their other plans, or maybe take some other guys off the table?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to be frank, look at their recruiting board, and I think there are 3 other guards who either are starting their official visit today, or have already officially visited, or officially visit in the next week or so. And I don't know that UNC would take 2 more guards in addition to Dixon. They'll definitely take 1 more, because we know that's kind of been the plan. So if you're one of those 3 guys and you kind of know where you want to go, you kind of have to beat someone else to the spot. If one of those 3 guys wants to go to Carolina, it could be a situation where none of them want to go to Carolina, and then UNC just goes in the portal and adds a couple guards. But I think the timelines we've seen with players this cycle started off very long. And I think we're already seeing some consolidation of those timelines. Some of those timelines receding from, signing day in November to October, now into, early October, maybe late September for some guys. So I think they just have to be aware of the spots are starting to fill now. Like, these are dominoes. There was a commitment on Wednesday of a major 5-star player. There's going to be one probably Monday or Tuesday. So the spots are going to start to fill up pretty quickly at some of these marquee schools. And if you want to go to one of those schools like UNC, then you kind of have to jump on it soon. I don't know that the staffs are going to wait, because they've waited a long time with this 2025 class, and I don't think they want to wait into late October into November, or even past the early signing period, unless you're like AJ DeBanster. all the schools will wait for him. But outside of that, I don't know that they'll wait.
Yeah, and I think that's you called that shot in the last show, so kudos on you, Sean. Last question for you before we get out of here. I do want to ask, how important is it for looking what North Carolina is going to have to fill? Again, we alluded to it earlier in the show that UNC is going to have plenty of minutes in the backcourt, but also a lot of production in the backcourt to fill. How important is it that they've now got a guy that can be a shooter, can be somewhat of a ball handler, but no matter what, you feel like he's going to help with some of that production and some of those minutes? How important is that for the first piece of the class to be that sort of profile?
I think it definitely sets a foundation. Once again, it's not the 5-star top 10 kid that will get everybody extremely excited, but I do think it sets a strong long-term foundation, not just for next year, but given all the angst we've had around this recruiting class after the success of 2024, I think it's a solid start. Obviously, not where you want to end up. I think you can see who UNC was competing against as to where, as well as the ranking as to where he is slotted. But I think a very, once again, solid shooter, great program. I think will be a guy that can contribute from day one. That will only grow. So I think it's a great early sign, and hopefully a sign of things to come in the 2025 class. But I think in general would give it a solid rating, and I think checks a lot of boxes that the staff is looking for, both on the court and just from a general mindset makeup.
Well, fellas, I appreciate it. And shout out to everybody who popped on and listened to this. Again, if it's an emergency podcast and it's not scheduled, that it's usually some pretty big news. So we try to get to you as quickly as we can to get all over that, so that you, our listeners and our subscribers, are getting the news that you expect from the high bar that we set at Inside Carolina. Want to give a big shout out to John Sigley for producing, to Johnny T-Shirt for supporting us, and to Congruity as well for supporting us. Remember, hit up Matt at Congruity HR. He'll take care of you. But for Sean Moran and Sherrell McMillan, I am Joey Powell. Again, special edition of the Coast to Coast podcast. Derek Dixon is committed, 6'3" combo guard out of the Washington, D.C. area, coming to the Tar Heels class of 25. First commitment of this class for Hubert Davis and his staff. Until next time, we will talk to you very soon. This has been the Coast to Coast podcast here on InsideCarolina.com.